For millennia, the galactic predators ruled as the dominant force in the universe, an apex species at the very peak of evolution. Every civilization that dared to stand against them was crushed without mercy. They weren't feared only for their devastating weapons, but for their ability to strip away hope itself, leaving their victims with two choices: submission or annihilation. But their hunger never ended. They always craved more: new systems, new planets, new species to dominate. During one of their routine scans, their gaze fell upon a small blue world in a seemingly insignificant solar system: Earth. To them, humanity looked laughably primitive. Our technology, while advancing, posed no threat to their vast empire. Earth was just another easy conquest, a simple addition to their growing collection. Their first move was subtle. A small team of explorers landed quietly, sent to study our defenses, learn about our people, and perhaps plant early seeds of fear. What they found, however, was not resistance, but curiosity. Humans greeted them cautiously, even openly, unaware of the danger standing before them. For the predators, this was almost disappointing. They had expected at least some form of defiance, rudimentary defenses, maybe even symbolic aggression. Instead, they saw a species eager to learn about its visitors, fascinated rather than afraid. To the predators, this only confirmed their superiority. Earth would fall without even a skirmish. Humans, dazzled and distracted, wouldn't even realize they were being conquered until it was too late. But beneath humanity's warm reception, leaders and militaries were not so naive. Governments understood that peaceful appearances often hid darker intentions. History had taught them well. Peace was too often a mask for conquest. So while the predators underestimated them, humanity began preparing in silence. Satellites tracked movements, scientists studied possibilities, militaries drew up hidden strategies. On the surface, the game of peace continued, but behind the scenes, humanity kept its eyes wide open. What began as an easy invasion had now turned into a nightmare. Silent, deadly human squadrons patrolled the skies, striking with terrifying precision. Predator ships, once thought invulnerable, became targets for human hackers, their systems hijacked mid-flight, crashing into the oceans below. The turning point came when a small team of human commandos infiltrated a predator base. Many had called the mission suicidal, but they executed it with brutal efficiency. Key commanders were eliminated, vital alien technology was seized, and the base's infrastructure was crippled. The shockwaves of that act rippled across predator ranks. For the first time, they were forced to admit that humans were not just lucky, they were lethal. The predators regrouped, reevaluating. What was meant to be a simple conquest had become a war of attrition, and they were losing ground. Their forces were stretched thin. Every battle cost them more than they gained. Worse still, morale began to collapse. Soldiers who once believed themselves invincible whispered in fear about humanity. The more they fought, the more they realized humans would never yield. They adapted at terrifying speed, fought with a ferocity that defied logic. For the predators, war had always been about domination and superiority. But for humanity, this was survival, raw and absolute. And survival brought out both the best and the worst. The predators tried everything, bombarding cities to break human spirit. But the opposite happened. Every destroyed city gave rise to 10 more resistance cells. Attempts to sow fear only united humanity further. Slowly, the invaders began to grasp a dreadful truth. They had stepped into a war they might not win. For the first time in their existence, they faced an enemy who did not just fight, but learned, adapted, and refused to surrender. Humans weren't fighting to conquer. They were fighting to protect their homes, their families, their very future. And that kind of determination could not be broken by brute force. The predators began to see humanity's true strength. Not technology, not numbers, but resilience, ingenuity, and an unshakable will. Every human defeat was temporary, fueling them to come back stronger. Every predator victory was fleeting, costing them more than they could afford. What started as conquest was unraveling into chaos. Predator leadership scrambled for a way to turn the tide, but with each passing day, Earth grew stronger. Humans weren't just defending, they were anticipating, countering, and driving the invaders back. To the galactic predators, defeat was unthinkable. Yet their dwindling forces and broken strategies forced them to face a horrifying reality. Earth wasn't just resisting, Earth was winning. In desperation, the Predators unleashed their full might. Massive warships capable of leveling continents, genetically engineered soldiers bred for battle, weapons powerful enough to twist Earth's very environment. This time, they intended to overwhelm humanity with raw force. The initial onslaught was devastating. Entire cities vanished within minutes, infrastructure was shattered, and Earth's communications were torn apart. The Predators believed they had finally broken human spirit. For a brief moment, they thought victory was theirs, but humanity was far from defeated. Even under overwhelming fire, they adapted. Hidden bunkers and decentralized command centers kept leadership intact. No single strike could cripple Earth's defenses. Instead of meeting the invaders head-on, humans waged war in unconventional ways. Swift strikes on predator supply lines, exploiting gaps in their logistics. The mighty invaders found themselves starved of resources, their soldiers worn down by endless skirmishes. Earth itself became a weapon. Jungles, mountains, sprawling cities, all turned into battlegrounds where predators were at a disadvantage. Guerrilla fighters set ambushes, snipers struck from the shadows, and raids left camps in chaos. For every human lost, 3 predators fell. Frustrated, the invaders escalated, deploying weapons that tore ecosystems apart, hoping to force surrender. Instead, every act of destruction only hardened humanity's resolve. It was no longer just survival, it was personal. Earth would never kneel. As the war dragged on, cracks began to form within predator ranks. Once unquestioned soldiers whispered of human tenacity, of enemies who fought with primal desperation, refusing to yield. The unstoppable war machine had become overstretched and exhausted. For the first time, they found themselves on the defensive. Fueled by vengeance and hope, humanity pushed forward. Scientists, after months of reverse engineering predator technology, unleashed new weapons. Energy shields, laser cannons, advanced drones, all forged from alien designs, fused with human ingenuity. What had once been a one-sided fight had become a war between equals. And the predators were not prepared for equality. In a decisive strike, human forces coordinated an attack on a fortified predator base. Using their newfound tech, they disabled critical systems, crippling command structures. Caught off guard, the invaders fell into chaos, abandoning equipment as they fled. The tide had shifted. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the Galactic Predators faced an enemy they could not dominate. Their confidence was shattered. The primitive world they once dismissed as insignificant had become their greatest challenge. Psychological cracks spread through their armies. What was meant to be another effortless victory, just one more planet to add to their empire, had turned into a nightmare. A war they could not win. The way to end the invasion came not from sheer force, but from something far greater. The human resistance had not only frustrated the predators, it had terrified them. The idea that a seemingly insignificant species could defy their empire, withstand their power, and even adapt their own technology was unimaginable. Yet it was happening. Desperation consumed predator leadership. In their panic, they unleashed forbidden weapons, devices sealed away for fear of catastrophic consequences. Entire cities were erased in seconds as destruction rained from the skies. And yet, humanity did not break. For every city leveled, survivors regrouped and struck back with even greater force. The harder the predators tried to crush them, the stronger humans became. Earth's defiance sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Other species, long enslaved or hiding in fear of the predators, now watched in awe. In humanity, they saw hope. Proof that even the most feared empire could be challenged. In distant corners of the galaxy, rebellions began to rise. The Galactic Predators, once unmatched across the stars, now faced something they had never known before, an existential threat. Not only was their campaign on Earth failing, but their entire belief system was unraveling. They had always believed that strength gave them the right to rule. But Earth had shown that true strength came not from power alone, but from determination, adaptability, and an unbreakable will to survive. The invincible empire found itself in an unthinkable position. They were not only losing the war for Earth, they were losing their grip on the galaxy. In desperation, the Predators launched their final assault, throwing everything they had left into one massive, coordinated attack. War fleets descended from every direction, their most powerful warships aligned in formation. Soldiers armed with their deadliest technology were deployed across the planet. This, they believed, would be the end. But Earth was ready. After months of relentless conflict, humanity had not only survived, they had grown stronger. Every hard lesson, every retreat, every bitter victory had been studied and turned into strategy. Scientists and military leaders had spent that time unraveling predator technology and designing new tactics. What began as a desperate struggle had become a carefully orchestrated defense. As the predator fleets descended, they were met with a storm of human counterattacks. Orbital satellites, refitted with predator tech, fired devastating blasts, crippling ships before they even breached the atmosphere. Swarms of human drones, each upgraded with stolen alien designs, filled the skies, overwhelming invaders with precise strikes. Predator warships, once thought indestructible, exploded in brilliant fire, their hulks crashing into oceans and mountains below. On the ground, Earth's soldiers, now armed with hybrid weaponry combining human ingenuity and alien power, held their positions. Wave after wave of predator assaults was repelled. The galaxy's most feared warriors found themselves outmaneuvered by fighters who knew every inch of their home terrain. The final battle was brutal. In desperation, the predators unleashed colossal energy blasts, leveling entire landscapes. But humanity had anticipated this. Underground bunkers, hidden fortresses, and deep defensive networks protected civilians and ensured the war effort continued. What the predators had never understood was this: humanity's greatest weapon was not technology. It was willpower. Earth was not fighting for conquest. They were fighting for everything that mattered: family, home, future. As the fighting reached its climax, cracks tore through predator ranks. Their once coordinated attacks faltered as human hackers severed communications between their fleets. Panic spread. The invaders realized they were losing control of the very weapons they had trusted. Then came the decisive strike. Human forces targeted the predator flagship, the nerve center of their entire invasion. Using reprogrammed alien tech, an elite commando team infiltrated the vessel. After a ferocious battle inside, they reached the control core and disabled the command network, paralyzing the entire fleet. With their leadership destroyed, predator forces fell into chaos. Warships drifted aimlessly. Soldiers on the ground found themselves cut off, surrounded, and overrun by an unrelenting resistance. One by one, their lines collapsed. What had once been the terror of the galaxy now broke and fled. The invincible had been defeated. When the dust settled and the last predator ship vanished into the darkness of space, Earth stood victorious. The cost was immense. Cities lay in ruins. Millions of lives were lost. But humanity had achieved what no other species ever had. They had defeated the Galactic Predators. Not only had they survived, they had emerged stronger. News of the victory spread across the stars. The once insignificant planet was now seen as a rising power. Civilizations that had long suffered under predator rule now turned to Earth for alliances and protection. The balance of power across the galaxy was shifting, and Earth stood at its center. Armed with advanced predator technology, human scientists forged a new era of progress. Space travel expanded beyond the solar system, new friendships with alien species were forged, and Earth's influence grew. But humanity had learned its lesson. They would not rule by fear or domination. Instead, they built coalitions, offering defense and unity to those who had once known only oppression. For the predators, defeat was more than the loss of Earth. It was the collapse of an empire. Their withdrawal marked the beginning of their downfall, as oppressed species rose against them. And so what was once a galaxy ruled by fear began to transform into a galaxy of hope. Earth, once overlooked and underestimated, had become a beacon of resilience and strength. The predators, who had never known fear until they met humanity, realized the galaxy no longer trembled at their name. From that day forward, humans were no longer seen as insignificant. They were respected, even feared, not for their technology, not for their numbers, but for their unbreakable spirit. The species that survived the greatest war the galaxy had ever seen was now ready to shape the future among the stars.